Coding simplified. Now, many would consider that an oxymoron to use coding and simplified in the same sentence. So perhaps we should say that we're just making it easier. Many of you have used the Paki Card in the wall chart, but for those that are not familiar with it, or for those that it still looks like a lot of Greek, we're going to go into details about how this was created and how it works. Now, in coding, you take a look at the CPT book, and it gives you the definition. And we're going to use history as an example as we go through this process of developing and using the Paki Card. To start with, a 99204, a new patient, 4th level, states that it contains a comprehensive history. Now, what does that mean? Well, we have to go to the documentation guidelines, and we see that the type of history is comprehensive, and therefore it would be extended that we would need in our history of present illness, complete review of system, and complete past family social. Well, now, what's extended? What's complete? Well, we have to go back and take a look at the documentation guidelines. And you'll notice I don't have a date on this documentation guidelines because for history and medical decision making, the 95 and the 97 guidelines are identical. They only are different in the physical exam. So we go to the documentation guidelines, and under the DGs, we find that brief history consists of 1 to 3 elements, and extended is 4 or more. So let's go back to our chart, and let's put some color to this, and let's define what we're talking about. So if we take a look at type of history, and we put a green label on problem focus, a yellow label on expanded problem focus, orange on detailed, and comprehensive is red. So now let's take a look at what the DG said. It said for a brief, we need 1 to 3 elements. For an extended, we need 4 or more. For review of systems, you don't need 1 for problem focus, but you need a pertinent for expanded. Extended is 2 to 9, and complete is 10 or more. And for family, you don't need 1 in problem or expanded problem focus, but you need 1 in detailed, but depending on whether it's a new patient, you need 3, or an established patient, you'll need 2 under comprehensive. So now let's take a look at what we have. Here we have on a level 4, we needed the detailed, complete. So we have the numbers, 4 plus, 10 plus, and 3 plus. Now, if you don't know what those numbers really mean, you go to the wall chart. This has all the elements of the history. We have the 97 physical exam, and we'll talk about why in a few minutes. And then we have the medical decision making. So these are the details behind what's in the Paki Card. For instance, on history of present illness, you'll see the sub-elements. When it talks about numbers 1 to 3 or 4 or more, what are they talking about? Well, talking about location, quality, severity, duration, timing, context, modifying factors, associated signs and symptoms. You could write a treatise, 2 or 3 pages on the location of pain, and you'd only have 1 element. But if you could come up with a sentence that has at least 4. So it's in the details as you audit charts or trying to figure out what level could be charged. There we are, again showing the colors and what each one's. And for review of systems, remember we had problem, pertinent, extended, and complete, 1, 2 to 9, 10 or more. And here's what you see on the wall chart. Pertinent, 1, extended, 2 to 9, complete, 10 or more. All right, now if you were to look at the details under Family Social, it would show you the same thing. You don't need one for the first two levels. 1 or 2 would work for level 3. But in order to charge a level 4 or 5, you need at least 3. It's got to be complete. All right, now let's look at physical exams. And again, if you go to the CPT, it'll tell you for a level 4, you need a comprehensive physical exam. So here's where the 95 and the 97 guidelines differ. We recommend using the 95s in all cases you can, and I think by the time we finish this discussion, you will understand why. Now, it talks about problem focus being limited exam of affected body area organ system. Expanded is limited exam of the affected and a related. Detail is an extended exam of the affected and other related. Comprehensive is a general multicystic exam or a complete exam of a single organ system. Doesn't give you the details. The 97s are identical for problem focus, expanded, and detailed in their definition. However, on comprehensive, it added to exactly what was in the 95. It says, plus other symptomatic or related body areas or organ systems. Now, as we know, the devil's in the details. So let's go back to the DG, the documentation guidelines. And it'll tell you the problem focused is a limited exam of the affected. Expanded is in a limited exam of the affected and other organ system. Detailed is an extended exam of affected and other. And comprehensive is as mentioned. Now, what does that really mean? Let's dig down a little further. All right, looking at the more details, it tells you what you have to document as far as negative and positive and where it should be on affected or symptomatic body parts. But it does give us detail. For the general multi-system exam, should include at least 8 or more of the 12 organ systems. Now, pay close attention. It says organ systems, not body parts, as it says up here, that you could document on body areas or organ systems. For the general multicystic exam, it's only organ systems. And here are your 12 organ systems. Now, please note that neck, chest, abdomen, extremity, etc. is not in here. Those are areas. These are organ systems. So all you need is one exam point in each of the 8 organ systems. That means you could do a complete exam without doing a pelvic or a rectal exam if they were not indicated. Now here are the documentation guidelines for a 97, the details. For a problem focused, 1 to 5 elements, and it can be in an organ system or a body area. For the expanded, you need 6 elements. And this is in 1 or more system or body areas. Doesn't matter as long as you get 6. For the detailed, you need 12. And it has to be in 2 or more organ systems or body parts. You could do 6 organ systems with 2 elements in each one, or you could do 2 body systems with at least 6, or any combination there. Now for comprehensive, in your specialty-specific exam, pay close attention. You have to include performance of elements identified in the bullet, whether in a shaded or unshaded. And you have to have documentation for every element in each box with a shaded border, and at least 1 element in each box with an unshaded border. Now let's look at that exam. And this is what's on the wall chart. And we have the 97 on there, not because we recommend it, but because some of you are in systems that you have to use it, and some just hadn't made the change to use the 95. But if you are using the 97, we want you to pay close attention that, for instance, abdomen or GI is in a shaded box. And it states you have to obtain a stool sample for occult blood when indicated. In other words, to have a complete exam, it would have to be documented that a test for occult blood was taken or that one was not indicated. And in the female, as you can see, it's in the shaded. So you definitely would have to do a pelvic exam on every female, and the rectal exam is required on the male. So again, on the physical exam, we put the numbers in. For the 97s, 1, 6, 12, and a complete in each of the 4 and 5. And for the affected, related in the physical exam for the 95, you have only a limited under level 1, a limited in each of the affected and related in level 2, extended. Now, where do these numbers come from? They're not mentioned in the documentation guidelines. Well, they were decided upon because of some of the other definitions within the system and have been vetted by numbers of Medicare medical directors, and they agree that this is a good definition. Extended is 4 or more elements in the affected and 4 or more in related. Could be in more than one system, as long as you have 4 bullet points outside the affected organ system. And for the complete, you have 8 organ systems, 1 element in each one. So that takes us through history and physical. The history is the same for 97, 95. We have the difference in the 95, 97. And again, a level 4 will tell you exactly what you have to have collected in order to charge that level. Now, let's take a look at medical decision making. Here, we could have substituted numbers in diagnosis and data, but we chose to keep the words limited, multiple, extensive, etc. And there was a good reason for that, and we'll share that with you. Looking at the number of problems or diagnoses. Now, here again, this is abstracted from number of different areas in the documentation guidelines and in subsequent articles, and has been vetted through many Medicare medical directors. And The key point is a new problem to a provider requiring no additional workup is multiple, even though it's only one, and extensive is one new problem to a provider requiring additional workup. So that's confusing to many, that you need a lot of diagnosis, but you don't. It's the amount of work you're being paid for with medical decision making. And the reason we didn't put the points, because as the color goes up, the points go up. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we felt leaving the words in would be more appropriate. It's easy to make that association. And the same thing with data. Now, the documentation guidelines are not detailed on the data, but the Marshfield Clinic came out with guidelines that Medicare accepted. Some of the carriers have modified all of these, and a carrier can do that. So it may not be exactly what you see here, but this is in general accepted, and it tells you how you get points over on the left side, and it tells you again that the lowest level is 1 point, 2 point, 3 points, and the highest level is more than 4. And the Paki Card keeps the minimum, limited, moderate, and extensive, but it's easy to tell what they stand for. And now for risk, it's a table, and there are 3 columns. It has to do with presenting problem, diagnostic procedure, management options, and whichever column you get the highest in, that's what you count. You don't have to have 2 out of 3, just the highest. So if this patient has a real severe problem that's life-threatening, then it's high and it's the highest level, even though you may not be doing any surgery or diagnostic tests. Billing based on time. Now, we've already mentioned that you have a choice on each encounter, that you can charge by components or you can charge by time. And if you charge by time, you do not have to meet the component requirements. And if you charge by components, you don't have to document the time. There are either or. Now, in order to qualify to charge on time, the session has to have over 50% in counseling or coordinating care. And if you're in the office, that time is counted only if you're face-to-face with the patient. Doesn't matter what you're doing, where you're calling a daughter or reading a chart, but if you're face-to-face with the patient, it counts. Hospital is different. It's floor time. And one key misconception on time is the times mentioned in the CPT book are average times, not threshold times. Let's take a look at an established patient, and you'll see that the average time for level 1 is 5, 2, 10, 3, 15, 4, 25, 5, 40. So if you spent 21 minutes with a patient, that is a level 4 because it's closer to 25 than it is to 15. If you spent 27 minutes with the patient, it's a level 4 because that's closer to 25. If you spent 20 minutes, which is halfway in between, you probably would be obligated to just drop down to the 3. But I can tell you, I've never spent 20 minutes with a patient in my entire career. There's always something else you could talk about to make it 21. And you don't have to tell the time in or time out. You document the time you spent. Now, we'll mention incident to billing because that's the way things are charged in the office. Everything in the office is charged as if the physician or qualified biller provided that service. And whoever is charging the service has to be immediately available in the office, does not have to be in the room, does not have to be involved in most services like inserting a catheter, drawing blood, etc. But they have to be in the office and immediately available. And for Medicare, if you have no physician, no PA, no NP, no qualified provider, there cannot be a charge, even for giving a shot or taking an x-ray. Now in private, rules may differ. Some payers would say if you're within 20 miles and available by phone, why then you can charge incident to. So you have to know what your payer rules are, and some payers don't know what their rules are. Now for a PA and NP, we'll talk about this more later, but they can charge incident to for others, and they can be charged by the physician incident to if a care plan has been established. So we've gone through the Paki Card, we've talked about time, and we now know what all of these numbers mean and how the color coordinating. I shared with you, I would tell you why we did the card, because I'm too lazy to look at all of those different areas to determine exactly what level, and my memory is not good enough to remember what all those words mean. So I had to put together a cheat sheet for me and thought I would share it with you. Now, if you don't have a Paki Card and wall chart, you can go to PRSNetwork and look under Shop, and you can order one there.